and I'm a bass player, and I was born in Boston, Massachusetts in 1923. I started my music education in my dad's school called the Music Lovers School for Music and Drama. I learned to play the piano there. I learned harmony, solfeggio, and all the other basic reading and tone appreciation things in music. My dad had an orchestra that played classics and symphonic music, and they used to rehearse at our house during the middle of the week. And that's where I first heard the big bass violin being played. When the bass player drew that bow across the strings, that sent a thrill through me, which I'll never forget, and I knew I was hooked on being an instrument. My dad was a little disappointed in me making that decision because he thought I had developed quite a skill on being a piano player. But I knew how I felt, and I just went ahead with it. I could not afford an instrument to play this, but solved that problem by joining the high school orchestra as a bassist, and the school taught you to play instruments, and that's where I got my start. From then on, it was practice, practice, practice. And I soon was able to join one of the local jazz bands led by Joe Nevels, a local band leader. I got that job because his bass player got drafted to the Army, and he let me use his bass as a favor. That was my basic training in bands, thanks to him. Pretty soon I started playing gigs in local nightclubs and partaking in Sunday jam sessions at the Savoy nightclub in Boston. I learned a lot of pointers from the local bass players in the area, and in 1944, a friend of my family introduced me to her young sister, and from that minute the minute I laid my eyes on her, I knew she was for me. A year later, we were married. Our first child, Linda, came along in February of 1945, and I knew then that I would have to come to New York to make a living playing music. I made my way to the 52nd Street jazz clubs, where I was able to work with guys like Stuff Smith, violinist Pete Brown, saxophone player, Billie Holiday, Charlie Shavers, trumpet, Errol Garner, piano, and many others. I also worked a lot of nightclubs like the Copacabana, the Zanzibar, the Onyx Club, the Three Deuces, Carnegie Hall, Cafe Society, and the Metropole, and a lot of others. The Bebop era did not appeal. Around that time, the Bebop area came in, and it really did not appeal to me musically. It featured lots of notes, but no identifiable melodies, which you could recognize. It showed off the great skills of the players, however. I was lucky to be hired by Duke Ellington because I patterned my playing after Jimmy Blanton, who was the greatest bass player of our time. And Skippy Williams, one of his saxophone players, asked Duke to give me a tryout with his band. And Duke agreed. However, I only stayed 4 months with the band because of a newlywed, and he said, okay, I'll try him. I only stayed 4 months with the band because being a newlywed and starting a family, I knew I was needed at home and not on the road 9 months out of the year. My wife and kids were the most important thing to me in this world. I made the right choice because I had 3 wonderful children and a really beautiful marriage which lasted 60 years until my wife was taken from me by ovarian cancer.